Hey guys, today we're super excited to announce that Wondergraph has raised a 7.5 million Series A backed by Karma, eBay, and Aspenwood Ventures. Enough of the professional stuff. You can see that I'm using a paper microphone. So you've seen those funding announcements where people get really high production value and stuff like that. This is the exact opposite of that. This is a personal one. You're going to meet and talk to the founders of Wondergraph, and we're going to talk today about why we even took funding, who we took funding for, and how this actually aligns to the stuff that matters, the engineering and the vision of Wondergraph, and the product that we're actually building for the people that care, our customers. So guys, if you don't know me and you're first time to our channel, my name is Stefan. I'm one of the co-founders of Wondergraph and Chief Customer Officer. I'm joined by my other three co-founders, Bjorn, our COO, Jens, our CEO, and Dustin, our CTO. As I mentioned with my paper microphone, this isn't going to be a professional Series A announcement. Instead, we're going to talk about the stuff that actually matters. I'm going to play the host. These are my guests to my Series A show, and we're going to get right into it. And so let's talk a little bit about this announcement, and I'll pass it off to Bjorn because we thought about this. Why did we even need the funding? We were profitable, we were growing at a steady rate, but Bjorn, why did we take the funding? And then when you answer, pass it off to Jens, because I'd love to hear from a CEO of why did we dilute our shares?
Yeah, I think Jens can speak much better to the perspective and the opportunity that now opens up with the additional funding. But what I'd like to point out is we were actually in a very lucky spot back in summer last year. Things were running great, way better than we expected. We were closing major customers like eBay, for example. And we were like, hey, this is a pretty comfortable spot. So things are just growing. And by the end of the year, we will be profitable. And that actually happened. So it's like the sweet spot you always wanted to be in. You're not dependent on external money anymore. And you can basically call your own shots and not take any, potential investors with different ideas into the company that might distract you or turn things into the wrong direction. However, you could grow organically, but it means also slower growth. Yes. Slow growth technically doesn't have to be a bad thing, but looking at the market and all the developments that are currently happening, just throw in the proverbial AI whatnot functionality. Time is of the essence. So for us, it was important not just to innovate, but to innovate faster. And one thing that has carried Wondergraph over the last, I think, 3 years quite successfully is that we've been very careful on spending. We haven't been frugal, but we've been very cautious about when to hire, who we hire, mistakes included, hiring too fast at a stage where it wasn't warranted. But in general, we were very careful on our spend. This wouldn't be the right strategy going forward. So when the opportunity opened up, that once we announced that we were crossing, I think it was 1 million in AR last year in summer, a lot of interest actually came in from a variety of VCs. And we started talking and realized it might actually be a good idea to talk about a potential Series A at this point in time. And the greatest thing from my perspective as a founder is always if you don't have to raise, things become just so much easier along the way. Okay. If you're when you're starting out, and we can talk about that in a little bit more in a little while, when you start out and you need money to, kickstart your company, get out of bootstrap mode and actually hire a couple of people, you've got neediness written all over your forehead. And this makes you, it kind of weakens your leverage in negotiations and asking for funding. So this time it kind of switched the positions. So we were not forced to take additional funding. We were interested and open, but we could be a little bit more relaxed about it. And this turned out to be a great opportunity for us because it also, I think, connected us with like-minded VCs with which we had great conversations about, the strategy, their view on things. And I think you would agree that it was a quite interesting exchange, which then led to eBay Ventures and Karma Ventures actually entering our nice round of investors.
Well said. I'm excited for this part here with Jens because he just released a blog post that you guys probably saw today announcing this fundraising. But Jens, tell us a little bit about the title of that blog post and why we, again, took the funding. It was good to take it, but there's a strategic reason of why we took it.
Yeah, we just couldn't say no to eBay, so kind of eBay was the trigger to do the Series A and to do it now. But if we're looking back, I would say around 1 year ago, something happened that we never thought that's actually real. So we have a Slack bot, and our Slack bot, it always announces when someone buys a self-served plan. So we know, like, okay, our self-served plan is like $500 or $3,500, and most of the time when someone signs up, it's just the $500 plan. So we're not getting rich by it, but it's still cool that it happens. It's like like someone rings the bell. Like, it's cool. But the thing that really was exciting that day is someone bought this package, and we realized, like, holy shit, it's eBay. Like, what is going on? Like, that cannot be true.
It's a scam.
Yeah, it must be a scam. And then a few minutes later, like two guys, Alex and Venkat from eBay, joined our Discord, and they were starting discussions with us, and we're like, no, something is wrong here. Like, but we quickly realized, okay, it's eBay, and actually we met some of them before on the Graphical conference. So it kind of paid off to do that conference and to have the Federetzels and the Mario Kart. So yeah, that was cool. And one guy, Alex from eBay, he's a senior architect in the seller experience team. So when you're a seller on eBay, then you're using their software. And he was pushing Wondergraph all the time. Like, he was like, hey guys, I want you to be successful. I want to get you into eBay, and you're doing it right with open source and everything. And he kind of really pushed us. And I think it just took a month or two, and eBay was an enterprise customer of ours. Yeah. Like, it was a huge success. And then for the next half year, they really helped us shape Cosmo, make it enterprise ready, make it really, really scalable to all the different use cases, and also adaptable, because enterprises like eBay, they have very specific requirements in terms of logging and observability and Prometheus and custom metrics and custom attributes, and a lot of energy went into this. And I would say, like, eBay was really so far our strongest design partner to help strengthen and the solution and make it enterprise ready. And yeah, at the same time, like Björn said, we were kind of interested to look at funding around the 1 million ARR mark, but we also kind of noticed that what was a million ARR in the past, it's not the same anymore. Like, today, you have to have much better metrics, and it's not so easy to get funding. Also, we're not an AI company, or at least not AI first. So it was a bit difficult, and we kind of concluded that we're not going to take funding. Like, we're almost profitable, numbers look good, and Björn was like, you know what, guys, we can do it. Like, we're not forced to. We will continue some conversations with some VCs, including, for example, eBay Ventures, who eventually reached out to us, driven by Alex. But we are not in a rush. Like, and I would say the best advice for founders, if you want to raise money, you should not need money. Yeah. And there's also the question of, should you actually raise or not? And I think it's tough to answer, but if you are like us in a market where there's an incumbent with more than 100 million in funding, you can't just work with a couple 100K. It's not enough. You need a little bit more firepower. And the opportunity opened as eBay Ventures came to us and said, guys, we want to be in the round. This is really something super important for us. We want to make a strategic investment. We want to double down on Federation and Cosmo, and you're doing the right things. But at the same time, eBay Ventures, they are not a lead investor. They are a follower. So we needed to find a lead investor, and we actually had a very good lead to the lead investor. So we were already in talks with Karma Ventures, and there's an interesting connection between Karma Ventures and eBay Ventures, because our investor from eBay, Joao, he previously worked together with Karma, so there was already like a very good connection. And I would say one thing we really focused on in conversations with VCs is, because we didn't need the money, we were very transparent in how we think and what we want to do and how we want to operate the company. And we really try to find a partner who aligns with our values, and then they should have an understanding of what is our vision and how do we want to move forward, because we don't want to have like complicated discussions with our VCs and have to align on vision and everything. Yeah, and we found a very competent partner in Karma. With us on the board is now Tommy, which we're super happy to have with. Tommy is previously also a founder, and this is why we chose him as our new board member, simply because we believe that with his experience, he will be best to understand our position and help us. And so yeah, that's kind of the story that brought us to this round.
Well said. To summarize, basically, when a Fortune 500 publicly traded company tries to give you some money, it's best that you take it. Easiest way to put that. And then, while the money is great, the vision is really what matters. And what matters there is, where are we going as a company? So now with this injection of funding, we're hiring across all the boards. So for sales, for marketing, for engineering, obviously. But it's an interesting place where we're going. We're doubling down on an insight that we've seen, and we're building a brand new product. Jens, what doors does this funding open, and where are we going with this funding? And then maybe talk a little bit with Dustin about the tech stack. What are we doing, and what are we going to enable enterprises to do? We're focusing on federation, but not GraphQL, if you saw from the last episode.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. So first of all, I would say the biggest criticism that we got in the past, or where deals broke apart, was, guys, you're too small, you cannot support us, etc., etc., or our legal framework wasn't strong enough. So for example, things we will invest in with our compliance expert Bjorn, we will invest in ISO 27001, increase compliance and everything. And then another part is, obviously we heavily invest in customer success, being able to help customers even better, offering more compelling SLA packages so that we can support the biggest of the biggest clients across the globe. Then, very obvious, with the investment from eBay, we will heavily invest in open source. So Cosmo is open source. It will stay open source. We have no intention to create an enterprise version of Cosmo. We believe if you want to win in the federation market, you cannot do this on top of closed source, simply because, let's assume that at some point all large FANG companies want to adopt federation as a pattern. They have to rely on some base. This base is the minimum base to do this. It's a router. And if we make our router an enterprise version or a closed source version, we already know from large FANG companies that they have policies they cannot use, like Elastic license or something like that. So the only option, and for example, this is what Netflix is doing. Netflix, they have their own router.
Yeah.
The router is running on the JVM. I think it's written in Kotlin, version of Apollo Federation v1 in a much simplified way. And this is what happens if you create walled gardens and enterprise walled gardens and weird licenses. You get like a fragmented ecosystem. And our approach is we actually want to build the opposite. So we want that large organizations, even if they don't use our cloud service, even if they don't use our full Cosmos stack, they can use it in a modular way. So they can say, okay, we built something on top of Cosmo router. And we're more than happy with that, because we believe if we want to have the best federation stack, the most performant router, the router that works in most cases, that's most secure, it must be the most used router. So if our end goal is to really solve federation, we must have the strongest router. And that's only possible if the majority of people are using that. And what we're seeing today is that beyond our customer base, FANG companies already are adopting it, using it open source and in other ways, and we believe like that's the foundation of everything. And then for us, the next step is what we learned through working with so many great clients like eBay, Paramount, SoundCloud, and others, is a huge factor that sits on top of federation, on top of the schema registry, on top of the router, is the schema. Mm-hmm. And I still remember, like from many conversations with Alex from eBay, he kept reiterating the schema is everything. The schema is the most important thing, and he kind of hammered down this thought, and I really got stuck on this and thought a lot about this. And what we realized is that today, if you look at the market, federation is really like a bottom-up approach. So every team can individually work on the sub parts of the puzzle, and everybody is free to decide what they do with the puzzle. But if you scale to a certain size, what we learned from eBay is that there's now a platform team that is somehow responsible for governance, that is somehow responsible for guarding the graph, that is responsible for ensuring that if someone makes a change, it's not going to negatively affect production. If somebody adds a field to a subgraph, that it has no negative effect on all the queries that are already in production. And we kind of realized there's a huge gap in the market in terms of collaboration and governance and ensuring the quality of the graph and everything. So for us, the next step is to advance into the territory of collaboration and governance, and really helping teams, small but also big ones, to really improve the quality of the graph and ensuring performance of the graph platform and making federation a scalable approach.
Well said. And Dustin, do you want to add a little bit more thoughts on that from the technical point of view?
I would like to emphasize on the fact that the router is the fundamental basis to achieve that, and that's also why we heavily investigate in the new iteration of the module system, which allows companies to completely instrument the router to their own needs, how they best fit in their own architecture and their own domain. And this will at the end then enable all enterprise customers to integrate the router into their own ecosystem.
Well said. So that's it. Oh, you want to add more?
Yeah, just one thing.
Heck yeah, anything you want, go ahead.
Yeah.
The good thing is.
Okay, so luckily, many large FANG companies started reaching out to us, and we started to understand how can we really be the enterprise standard. And one thing we realize is, so with WonderGraph Cosmo, we have built an ecosystem that in itself, everything fits very well together. And if you use the whole Cosmo stack, that's great, and it's working fine. And I would say all our mid-size to large size customer, like the small customers anyways, but everything, I would say up until hyperscale, it works great on our standard Cosmos stack. But then there's a problem. If you also want to work for hyperscalers, You can't tell them, here is how we do Prometheus, here is how we do open telemetry, because these hyperscalers, they have a tendency to build their own things. Like they have their own observability platform simply because it's 100 times or 1,000 times more scalable than everything you have ever seen. You can't just use Prometheus because it would fall apart. And so one of the big initiatives that Dustin is driving in the future is that we build abstractions on top of how the router currently interacts with Cosmo, which we then implement primarily like as a default with Cosmo, but allow everybody else to implement those with their own systems. So that means from metrics to observability to logging to even HTTP transport, like everything. In the end, you will be able to use Cosmo Router with your own data store, metric store, telemetry, whatever. It can be fully custom, and we believe that's like the foundation to make router work for everybody.
Well said. And so there's a lot coming to WonderGraph Cosmo, especially around reliability, around security, around teams. We're hiring actively around marketing, around customer success, sales. We're looking for 2 leadership positions with a VP of marketing and a VP of sales. But the fundamental thing remains the same. Open source, some good engineering, and some great experience that you can come get here at WonderGraph. So guys, thank you so much. Again, WonderGraph Cosmo just raised $7.5 million, led by Karma Ventures, backed by eBay Ventures and Aspenwood Ventures. Thank you.